Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. Today, February 21st, 2022, we are continuing our coverage of the ongoing civil war taking place inside of the former state of Ethiopia. And first, we're going to jump right into battlefield coverage, and at the same time, we're going to discuss some of the strategy that is going on right now on the ground, specifically the why behind the recent Tigrayan Defense Force activity in the Afar region. So the fighting continues in Afar, not on a level of intensity that has been seen, obviously, in the past. The Tigrayan Defense Forces still maintain control over Barhale, Abala, and areas in between, and both north and south of these areas. In fact, the Tigrayan Defense Forces now relatively control the entire length of the Afar regional border and have established buffer zones inside of the Afar region. And the question is why is the TDF conducting said operation? In some circles, I've been asked this question as it appears to be a waste of assets, and I would say that in terms of the TDF continue to press into the Afar region with some sort of generalized offensive aiming to take large chunks of the the Afar region, then I would say yes, but that's not what is happening. In fact, they're conducting very precise operations across the border with efforts to eliminate staging areas and areas of operations in which Afar regional militias and of these so-called special forces, more or less light infantry forces, that were operating against the Tigray region. And one of the main purposes behind this operation is for once to settle any possibility of an Afar regional militia operation into the Tigray region. If we harken back to the battles that took place when the Tigrayan Defense Forces had seized control of large parts of the Amhara region. We also know that the Afar regional militias started to apply some pressure on the Tigray region, and that's specifically occurred when we saw large amounts of TDF forces focused on taking control of large areas of the Amhara region and then pressing its attack towards Addis Ababa. And as we had discussed in previous episodes, in all likelihood, the TDF would have seized Addis Ababa if not for foreign intervention, specifically Turkish, Chinese, United Arab Emirates, and Iranian drones and other assets as well that were deployed against the TDF. But with that being said, while that was happening, these Afar regional militias also started to attack across the border, and in some cases were threatening the supply lines of the Tigrayan Defense Forces as these operations took place. So what we're seeing right now is future-proofing any further activity by the TDF that in terms of if the TDF were to launch another major operation, they are currently future-proofing the concept that these Afar regional militias could turn around and basically strike them in the back, so to speak. So they're removing this threat of these Afar regional militias prior to the execution of any ongoing or other military operations that could take place in the future. Again, the Afar forces are not an imposing force. However, with that being said, when the Tigrayan Defense Forces were operating around Weldia, Desse, Kombolcha, and they had huge amounts of their manpower and some of their better units forward deployed in the Amhara region, then that is when these Afar regional forces kind of struck, and at times were causing some issues for the Tigrayan Defense Forces supply lines. But right now, we're seeing that being completely eliminated. So if another operation takes place in the future, it is probably going to be much less likely for the Afar regional militias to make inroads into the Tigray region, because for all intents and purposes, many of these units are now being destroyed or have been destroyed within the last 4 weeks or so. So again, that is the rationale behind this TDF operation into the Afar region. It is not to secure main arteries from Djibouti into the former state of Ethiopia. It's not to seize control of Samara. It is simply to destroy any capacity that these Afar regional militias have in regards to possibly being deployed against the Tigray region at a later date. And a very good reason behind that is, again, this continued buildup and this positioning that we're seeing for the eventual reconquest of Western Tigray, if there in fact is not a diplomatic solution to this issue. Now, with that being said, we have also heard reports that the Ethiopian National Defense Forces, the Abiy loyalist forces, could be preparing for some sort of offensive into the Tigray region. And again, I want to kind of dispel that. That is simply not possible at this point in time. Again, these Abiy loyalist formations, the ENDF, as you know it, has been greatly impacted by both its massive defeats that took place in the Tigray region and the ensuing invasion of the Amhara region by the TDF. Again, the ENDF, or the Abiy loyalist forces, are simply in no shape at this point to launch a new invasion into the Tigray region. As a matter of fact, they're barely holding on as we speak against the Oromo Liberation Army. This is not being reported on. I've talked about this time and time again. The ENDF, the Abiy loyalist formations right now are in really dire shape in regards to its continued fighting against the Oromo Liberation Army. The OLA continues to control vast areas of Oromia and continue to institute its own anaconda type of strategy against the government, the Abiy loyalist government based in Addis Ababa. And those operations continue. And again, the concept that the ENDF would have the ability to back away from its current fight against the OLA and then reinvade the Tigray region is something simply right now that is just outside of their capability, due to the amounts and the losses that took place by the ENDF while it was in the Tigray region and the ensuing invasion by the TDF of the Amhara region. What could you see actually occur? Quite possibly, we continue to see issues with Fano. We continue to see issues with some of these Amhara regional militia forces that continue to operate in Western Tigray. But again, it's really in no shape in terms of capabilities for those forces as well to launch a renewed operation into the Tigray region. It would be tantamount to suicide for some of those units if they in fact tried that as well. But again, that is the status on the ground in case you're wondering on this map. Again, wiki map, obviously. The areas in green are controlled by the Tigrayan Defense Forces. The areas in red, Abiy loyalists or Amhara regional militias. The area in gray in Western Tigray indicates either Amhara regional militias or Eritrean army forces that are deployed in Western Tigray. Just a quick note in case you, the viewer, have not gone over to this map and looked at it for yourself. But that is the current state of affairs. We're continuing to watch very, very closely what's happening in Western Tigray. I know I've been talking about this for a bit now, but again, we do anticipate at some point we are going to see a very, very quite possibly heavy-handed operation by the TDF into Western Tigray. with the eventual goal to drive out those Eritrean and eventually those Amharan forces as well that are in western Tigray. But that is the news on the ground for now. We continue to watch. We will continue to report, even with all eyes on the continued crisis in Ukraine. And that goes for basically the entire world media. We will continue to watch very, very closely what is happening on the ground inside of the former state of Ethiopia. Have a good day, everybody. See you soon.